Hello Internet, welcome back to our experimental Cataclysm series. This is the series where we talk about updates that have come to the experimental version of Cataclysm over the last couple of weeks. Pretty short show today. Oh, my words already are giving me trouble. Pretty short show today, unfortunately. Not a lot I want to talk about. So we're just going to dive in and hopefully we all have a good time learning about the game. Hooray. So first, from Korg, we got another dev video. Now, I don't know the rules exactly of showing a video in a video and copyright and stuff, so I'm not going to show you the video, but there will be a link in the description down below and hopefully a card that pops up in the corner here to let you go watch that. It's another developer blog from Korg, and mostly he talks about what we're about to talk about, and so let's just jump into it. It's the graphical overmap for currently it's for retro days, but it's going to be for really any tile set. So he's been showing a lot of pictures of this on Discord. I think it looks really great, and I think it's a really cool feature. I don't understand 100% of what's happening. To my understanding, it's going to make it so that tile set makers in the future will be able to create individual sprites for buildings so that you can have a graphic overmap instead of the ASCII symbols that is the default currently. In addition to that, the stuff he's been adding is going directly into retro days. So if you're playing Retro Days, I don't know when this happened exactly, but you should start seeing this graphical overmap. And he's been working a lot on this. Like I said, he's been showing it off a lot on Discord. I think it looks really awesome. You'll see there are still missing sprites, of course. Obviously, we have, probably hundreds of buildings in Cataclysm, all of which would need a unique sprite. So there are still letters, sprinkled in here and there. I like the trees a lot. I like the roads. I saw some people complaining about the roads. Don't really understand. In fact, let's talk about that. I've seen a lot of people complaining about his art skills, which is like super disrespectful. In my opinion, this guy's going out of his way to make all this stuff and add functionality. And then people are like, yeah, but the dashed lines, I don't really like them. They're just not it's like, it's such a small sprite. It's pixel art. I don't know. I respect people a lot who can do art in any capacity. Even just simple pixel art is pretty beyond my capabilities. So for me, I think it looks great. I thought there were more screenshots here, but it doesn't really look like it. I thought we would be able to see it more closely. I suppose I could scale way in. And just take a look at the towns here. That's a lot of ASCII, more than I expected, actually. I thought he had done. I mean, I think he did do quite a lot of sprites. It's just that there are so many buildings. So you'll see there are a lot of similarities. I believe this double building, it represents a duplex, the simple house sprites that we're seeing, and this is going to develop more over time. In fact, I think he's updated this 2 or 3 times already since this first went live. And like I said, I think the goal of this, if I understand it right, is to put this in the hands of tile set makers so that if you play on dead people, some dead guy is going to have the opportunity to make all these sprites in his style for his tile set. Same with Ultica. As Ultica progresses, Ultica will have the capability of creating their own tile set. So this is strictly the Retro Days tile set. It will most likely, I know most players play with Ultica or undead people. It's not going to look like this for you. And in fact, at the moment, I'm sure it's still all ASCII on the overmap. So is this a prison? That would be my guess off the top of my head. Actually, there are helipads here. I don't know what these are. But anyway, graphical overmap is a thing. I thought it wasn't going to come until after 0.f, but it looks like it's been added to the game. And honestly, it's one of the cooler things that's been coming down the pipeline recently. So I think this is really, really great. I've been watching it, keeping an eye on it, but I also really have not understood a lot of the technical back stuff. Like you just hear people, I overhear people talking about it, but I don't actually see a lot of times like really specific examples of what's happening. So from what I've gleaned from conversation, it's going to be up to the tile set maker. So if you're seeing, you want to see the graphical overmap, you got to go after those tile set makers and tell them you want the graphical overmap. But I think in time, all of these are going to become pretty standard. It's going to be an adjustment for sure. With pixel art, it can be really hard to differentiate such a small tile from another small tile. So I do think that it will be pretty subtle and maybe difficult to tell at first until you kind of memorize what looks like what. But ultimately, I think this is a really great change. I think it's really cool, and it certainly makes the Overmap look a lot nicer than it did previously. I really dislike all the ASCII symbols on the Overmap. I would much rather have an actual graphic representation of that building. So I think this is a really great change. And he talks about it at length in his video. So hey, if you haven't checked that out, go ahead and check that out. Came out a few days ago. I haven't actually watched the full thing. I only watched part of it. So yeah, just shouting out Korg, of course. Next, I wanted to talk again about Ultica being updated. Urk has been updating the Ultica tile set sometimes one day after he's already updated it. So this is something that's getting a lot of work done lately, and I just wanted to shout it out because it's really cool to see Ultica developing, and I think there's been a real push before 0.f to get a lot more work done. So not only has Ultica been updating on a pretty regular basis, but it is now the default tile set, which I thought was pretty important to mention. So there was a change recently that changed the way vehicles look. You may have noticed in your game, depending on your tile set, vehicles might be broken a little bit, have tiles that are not showing up, things like that. That's because they expanded, to my understanding, the support for vehicle tiles. So like, I'm trying to think of how to, it adds more functionality for tile set makers, basically, is what I understand. And because of that, Ultica is really the only one that has working, nice looking vehicles, at least at the time of this release. So yeah, Ultica, and from my perspective, I think that Retro Days is a perfectly fine tile set, and I personally dislike it because it kind of bothers my eyes. And if I'm being honest, and again, it's no disrespect to Retro Days, but it's a little minimal, which I think is kind of the point, but like, it's a little minimal for me. I like having actual, like, pretty significant sprite work in my games. I like seeing something pretty while I'm working. I think Ultica looks better than Retro Days, in my opinion. And I think that the average player who comes to the game would be a little turned off by Retro Days. You know, one of the biggest things I see on Discord are people who come in and say, hey, I hate the way the game looks. Can help me put a tile set in place? So I think that for mass appeal, it's better to have a more graphically appealing tile set. So for me, it makes perfect sense that Ultica would become the norm. I'm actually happy to see this. If you're playing and you're playing on undead people, I would really encourage you to take a shot on Ultica. Ultica, I've switched in my recent playthrough. You know, I know transitioning tile sets is rough. I know no one likes to do it, but I've done it. I mean, at this point, it's been 2 separate instances. I went from chest hole to undead people, and that was an adjustment period, and it took me a while to get used to it. And then I went from undead people to Ultica, and, you know, it's an adjustment period. Yes, it's hard for a week or 2, and then you kind of slip into it, and it's a smooth transition. But I would encourage you, if you haven't tried it out, check out Ultica. I think Ultica looks really nice. It's less cartoony than some of the other tile sets. It has a lot of, I really like the feral tiles. You know, they're relatively recent. They look great. A lot of the tiles really look nice. I liked Ultica a lot. And I would encourage you just to give it a shot if you haven't already. And now, if you're a new player coming to the game, which you probably wouldn't be watching this show if you were, but if you were a new player, you're now going to be faced with Ultica upon starting up the game instead of Retro Days, which I do think is an improvement. So just wanted to talk about that briefly, and we'll move on to the next thing. Next, from Candleberry, we got the renaming of the Schizophrenic trait. Now, I did see, again, it's so weird to me that some people push back on some of these changes. I've seen people push back on changing the name of the Schizophrenic trait, but it's not it was never schizophrenia. The Schizophrenic trait, that's not what schizophrenia is. Basically, if you took the trait, you would get hallucinations. That's like minimizing what schizophrenia actually is. It's a much more involved thing. So I think it makes more sense to just create something new to fit it, or to rename it. Like, even if they had just changed it to, like, you know, I mean, I don't know, like delusion or something, hallucination, you know, something with just hallucinations, instead of making an actual, like, real world comparison, because it just didn't fit that real world comparison. So Schizophrenic has been renamed to, God help me, Colluptic psychosis. I have no idea. Some bastardization of Collupto. I don't know what that accent means. which is half of the Greek word for apocalypse. That's interesting. That's pretty cool. Anyway, it's exactly the same. It just has changed its name. Have someone else try to accurately simulate schizophrenia later on. That would be interesting. You know, people bring up real world traits all the time. Like, hey, we should have like proper depression in the game because obviously it's something people would deal with in the apocalypse. And then there's a discussion over how do you implement something that has a real world comparison that varies so differently from person to person and can really be, you know, completely different on how you handle. Like, I have depression. It's more like I get really significant mood swings. My particular depression is often more akin to something like bipolar disorder than it is to actual like other chronic people, like people who have chronic depression. So it's like, how do you, you know, you're generalizing, and with a real world condition, it's very hard to implement something like that in the game. So like, yeah, it'd be cool if somebody added like proper schizophrenia, but for now it is disguised psychosis, which is like, you know, I think it's a fine change. I don't know why it needed people to be pushing back on it. It literally just renames the trait. It didn't remove it from the game. You know, as far as I know, everything about it's the same. So if you find your Thorazine or whatever in game that normally fixes the schizophrenia trait, it's going to affect this new psychosis as well. So like literally, I don't think anything else has been changed. So I don't understand the pushback. I don't really get people's frustrations. Like a lot of times I totally get, you know, some people are frustrated by things. I don't really understand the issue with this one. So Schizophrenic has been renamed, and that's about all you need to know. Moving on. Naming disorder after Greek mythology really works for me. It sounds like a proper disorder. It does sound proper. Next, from Frizz, we got a reversion of something that I really did not like. You'll remember probably about 6 weeks ago, we had a change, maybe not that long ago, we had a change where smashing items with no weapon in your hands would damage your hands. Hated that change. No offense, Mail Clips. I think it was Mail Clips. I just didn't like that change. It didn't make sense to me that like a sentient human would like punch a chair until their hands were bloody. Just didn't really make sense. And this has been reverted by Frizz, and in fact, it's been changed as well. It's not just like, oh, we don't hurt our hands anymore. Now, when you smash things, it will use your most armored body part, which will prevent, again, damage from being dealt to your hands, and additionally leads to some interesting behavior. So the screenshot he added here says, okay. You put on your safety glasses, which makes this his most armored part, and then he tries to smash a cupboard, and the message is, you use your flippin' face to smash the cupboard. Extreme. I'm sure I gave that a great read because I definitely sound excited and like I'm just smashed a cupboard with my face. But the point is, it will give a smash message based on the body part that has the most armor. And yeah, I like this. I like that reversion. It didn't really make sense to me in the confines of like reality. Just, you know, smashing, you wouldn't punch a door until your hands bleed. You would obviously stop before you injured yourself. I am open and would even like kind of like in NetHack, for instance, you can kick doors down, but occasionally, depending on your random roll, you have the chance of injuring your leg temporarily because you kind of hit the door wrong or whatever. And I wouldn't hate seeing that in Cataclysm, where it's like, okay, you know, you're not going to damage your hands because you're trying to smash a chair, but there's a small chance that like, hey, when you smash the chair, maybe you skin your knuckle or something and take 1 point of damage, something like that. Or you try to bash down a door, but you slam your shoulder into it, it hurts you a little bit, you take a minor point of damage, that kind of thing. So I think from like, you know, roleplay, I guess, reasons, I wouldn't hate something like that. But I was glad to see this reverted. So thanks, Frizz, for doing that. And again, no disrespect to the person who initially implemented it. I just didn't like it personally. It's always weird to give your opinion on things because like I always feel like maybe you shouldn't say you don't like a change because then you're kind of disrespecting someone, but then also I'm entitled to my opinion, so it's a whole thing. Next, also from Candleberry, we got the last flight scenario. Basically, it's a pilot alongside an unfueled helicopter. So I wanted to mention this because I know a lot of you are really fascinated by the helicopters in the game and you haven't really had an opportunity to play with them. So this scenario will start you next to an unfueled helicopter. The roleplay here is that you flew out trying to escape zombie apocalypse or whatever maybe, and then you run out of fuel, so you land. In fact, it says here you are an emergency landed helicopter, so you landed somewhere just out of like, oh, we have to land, we're running out of fuel. And then in addition to that, the nearest airport will be marked on your map so that you can go and salvage fuel for your helicopter. And I really like this not only because it provides a helicopter for those who want to play with them, but additionally it makes it so that it's not just, oh, here's a free helicopter. You actually have to work for it by harvesting fuel for yourself from a nearby airport, which would presumably have at least some monster density and add some amount of challenge. So I really wanted to point that out. I know a lot of you are really fascinated by the helicopters, so I'm sure people will be very excited about this. This was merged 4 days ago. Pretty cool. And I just wanted to shout that out for those of you chopper lovers out there, because you know who you are. You know who you are. Next, from Hilanoko, we have a long duffel bag item. So basically in the game, with the length changes that have happened over the last couple of months, you may have noticed, I'm sure you have because I hate it, you can't fit guns in basically any bag that's in the game. And it's super frustrating to not be able to pick up multiple guns at one time and transport them at your leisure. This has been a huge frustration for me. So this person has added a longer variant of the duffel bag into the game, which will be able to haul very long items. Really like this. I was really glad to see this, that somebody stepped up and did the work. And it's basically just a big old duffel bag. And it really bothered me too, because the old duffel bag had the term huge in its description, but it was so tiny. Like I use the example all the time. I have a military style duffel bag from it's probably like 30 years old at this point, but it's enormous. It's like 3.5 feet long, and it's this enormous military duffel bag that I've gone on trips where I can pack literally everything into this thing, and it's just this huge duffel bag. And then I go in the game, and the duffel bag in the game was like, this is a huge duffel bag, and its opening is like 1.5 feet wide, and you're like, that is a very small duffel bag. So I was very excited to see a longer variant added. I do think, it'd be great if someone went in and removed the term huge from the existing duffel bag. I think that would be a nice little follow-up. I think that's something that should have been done. But it's just a big old duffel bag, and I'm happy to see that in the game. So thanks to Hilanoko. Hopefully I said your name right. Moving on. Sorry if my puppers are barking. It's also storming quite loud outside, so they're a little upset by the storm, and you might hear the rain in the background of this episode. Next, from Q Rocks, we have fix NPC dying immediately after accepting an inhaler mission. The only reason I'm mentioning this is because I believe this is a really long-standing issue. I have had this happen to me, and I mean years ago this happened to me, where you get the quest from the NPC. I literally walked across my shelter to get the item for him, and within the 4 or 5 steps, he died immediately. It's not great when stuff like that happens, so it looks like this person has stepped up and bug fixed that, which is really great. And like I said, I think this has been in the game for like literally years, so I just wanted to shout it out because it's something I remember being an issue. This could be an unrelated issue to the one that I experienced years ago, but like I bet it's the same thing that needed fixing. So I just wanted to shout that person out. And then finally, from Lyle SY, probably the biggest, most notable change, maybe the graphical overmap is the biggest thing, but like the winged zombies, oh my god, can you believe it? So basically this adds some flying zombie upgrades to the game. Specifically the Batwing Zombie Brute and the Batwing Zombie. Now I think they may have been renamed because someone was calling them by a different name in the Discord. I don't see that here. So here they're named Batwings, but they may have been renamed because, like I said, I do believe people have been calling them by a different name. That could be from a mod or something. But anyway, basically this is just a regular zombie and a and a zombie brute that have been copied and then sort of had their skills shuffled around a little bit and given the ability to fly. This is a big deal. We have not had flying zombies. There was a long time ago I was working on a mod that was supposed to add harpies to the game. So I'm going to ramble a little bit about my own work. I had an idea for this group called the Raven Ladies. They were like a gang. They would wear these leather jackets, kind of like the Pink Ladies from Greece, kind of like not really a gang, but just a bunch of ladies who hung out together and kind of thought they were tough and whatever. And then over time, they were called the Raven Ladies, and then they would slowly progress, and then they became more and more bird-like. So in the beginning, they're just sort of like lady zombies wearing leather jackets. Middle tier, they start getting like nubby wings and stuff. And then final tier is like full-blown harpy, naked purple lady or whatever with weird, like, I mean, not like gratuitous nudity, but like, hard armored plates on their body and stuff. It was a whole thing. So when I saw that there were flying zombies being added, I was like, oh crap, I missed the opportunity to implement my own stuff. But at the same time, I was like, this is actually pretty cool, but also troublesome. So flying zombies, people pointed out like, hey, this, I missed another change. We'll talk about that in a minute. People, have been like, okay, this should be their own line of zombies. It shouldn't just be an upgrade for a zombie and a brute. It should be like a specific, kind of like what I just mentioned with the Raven Ladies, where it's a specific creature that evolves forward, kind of like we have the ferals, or I'm sorry, they're not ferals anymore, but like zombie runners turn into zombie predators, turn into zombie, whatever the middle one is. Not Slav ring biter. I don't know, but they have 3 upgrade paths, right? It's a singular creature that evolves into those things. And here, that's kind of what the discussion was like, hey, these should be their own Batwing type zombies. They shouldn't be any zombie be able to turn into them. So I do think that might be something that gets changed in the future. But other than that, it's pretty basic. There's zombies that fly. And being able to transition Z levels without needing stairs or whatever is actually like a really powerful ability. So I have not encountered these in the game yet. I'm a little worried about it. They don't spawn on day 1. They are a higher evolution, so it's not something you're going to have to worry about right away. But I do think that they're going to be really... It just depends. I have to play with them a little bit to get a feel for them. But what I suspect is that they will become pretty dangerous creatures, especially if they have brute evolutions. So we're just going to have to see how this goes. I just wanted to point it out because, it's a thing. And I wanted people not to just get shocked all of a sudden by flying zombies. So flying zombies, they can fly now, which is pretty cool. They are weaker and slower, I believe, than like your standard version of this creature. And like I said, I think this is probably just the initial implementation. I suspect they're going to get refined and it kind of changed a little bit. So we really don't know what they're going to look like in the end. But for now, all you really need to take away from this is that if you live on a rooftop or something, you might not be as safe as you think you are. Now, the AI in Cataclysm is... I love Cataclysm, but the AI in Cataclysm is pretty not good. Most zombie AI doesn't need to be good, right? Basically, can you see the human? Yes. If yes, go eat the human. It's pretty straightforward. Adding something that can fly, that is much more complicated AI. Because, maybe they fly up in the air every now and then to try and get eyes on the player. Does their vision radius increase when they go up or down a Z level? There's a lot of little factors, like why would it go up? If it's in combat, will it flee? Will it come back? If it flees, can it flee through a Z level? Etc., etc. So, I think it's going to be complicated to dial these in. And my suspicions is that they're probably going to be pretty dumb to start with, unless the AI gets some work. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I just wanted to shout it out. And then there was another monster that I completely forgot about. So let's see if we can pull that up really quick. Here we go from AOAE23. Is this... I recognize that person from Discord. I think they're like... I don't know if they're in charge of the Reddit or they're a mod in the Reddit or something like that. But anyway, so this individual has added Ashen Brawlers, a smoker zombie evolution. This is something that's been talked about quite a lot I've heard this topic come up multiple times about giving an evolution to smoker zombies, which I think you know, we have so many other things that evolve. Whenever you see one that doesn't evolve, you kind of think like we should really do something about that. Like we used to not have an evolution for shady zombies, if I remember right, way back in the day. And it's just like, oh, why not add something, right? So here we have a smoker zombie evolution. Specifically, they're called Ashen Brawlers, which is a great name, by the way. Good call on the name. Smoker Brutes as a joke, but Korg said go for it. Yeah, I don't really see a huge problem with that. Gameplay-wise, a cross between zombie wrestlers and smoker zombies. They emit smoke and are very fast and have fearsome melee attacks that they use to keep you debilitated in their smoke. Smokers are, now that the stamina changes have shaken out over the last year or so, I think like a year ago we got the stamina changes, smoker zombies can be actually really, really dangerous these days because they sap your stamina, and that can lead to the winded malice. So I am, you know, they're pretty dangerous, and we have, a smoker brute essentially, and the cross between zombie wrestlers. Are the zombie wrestlers? Do they have the stretchy arm ability that pulls you in? So that would be pretty scary if the smoker zombie all of a sudden grabbed you. Now, where's the? I'm looking for the monster attacks. Smash. Yes, they have the ranged pull ability and grab drag. Yeah, that's pretty scary, honestly, to think that there might be a smoker out there that you would not be able to see in the smoke, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're kind of on the outskirts of the smoky area, and it reaches out and grabs you and pulls you in. Although, are smokers negatively affected by their own smoke? Can they see through that? I don't actually know the answer. I imagine they do see through that. I don't know how I would find the answer to that. But anyway, that's pretty damn scary to think that they would be able to grab you and haul you into the smoke. So this is definitely a very dangerous creature, just because they could grab you, pull you in, your stamina gets depleted, you get winded, can't run away, you're in the smoke, multiple enemies are coming at you, whatever. Pretty scary. But I like it, honestly. I like that this has been added. So yeah, smoker brute. How about that? That's pretty interesting. And I love that we're getting all these evolutions and new creatures. I know, like I've shouted out Lyle SY multiple times over the last couple of months, as he's done a lot of work with the animals, the zombie animals. Which now that I think about it, I don't think we've had a new zombie animal in a couple weeks. But anyway, it's not that it matters. There's a ton of them at this point in the game. And yeah, I think it's been really great. We've been getting a lot of monsters, which over the last couple of years has been pretty lackluster. We haven't had as many new monsters over the last couple of years as we've had new locations or new scenarios and new professions. That kind of stuff happens way more often than new monsters. And in the last year or two, we've gotten, I mean, just off the top of my head, the wretched pukers, we've got the dissolute devourers, all the zombie animals. All the upgraded soldier zombies that we've gotten. I don't remember when that was. We've got smoker upgrades. We've got it's just been really a great time to be playing Cataclysm. We have a lot of contributors who are doing a lot of good work. But anyway, let's not ramble about it. So I think for now, that's going to do it. Thanks everybody for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. I'm going to do something a little different on this video. I'm going to say, we're going to set a like goal. So if you don't know, on YouTube, one of the best things you can do for a person you're watching, other than, watch the video, is click the like button at the bottom. That little thumbs up helps put my video out there for more people. So I want to set just a like goal, just a simple, other YouTubers have encouraged me to do this. So we're going to shoot for a goal, and we're just going to say something completely reasonable, like just 5 or 6. Let's just, I'm not shooting for the moon here, just a small goal. I want about 5 or 6 million likes on this video would be great. So if you could smash that like button, I'd really appreciate it. And for now, that's the end of the show. So thanks everybody for coming out. I'll be back in 2 weeks with something more where we'll talk about new updates and things. And that's going to do it. So see you next time.